No screaming, just the buzz of the clippers. The 30-year-old billionaire freezes, the 65-year-old grandmother clippers in hand, his 8-year-old son, quiet. "Stop. You're humiliating my boy." He swears he's right. Hours later, a doctor and a small beanie will show why love sometimes looks harsh. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get started. "What are you doing to my son?" Marcus Johnson shouted, his voice bouncing off the walls of the spacious bedroom. Louise Johnson's hands remained steady as she held the electric clippers. She didn't flinch at her son's outburst. Behind her, 8-year-old Jamal sat on a wooden stool surrounded by curly black hair that now covered the floor like dark snow. "Dad, it's okay," Jamal began, his small voice uncertain. Marcus rushed across the room, the expensive rug muffling his footsteps. "Stop this right now!" He grabbed the clippers from his mother's hands, accidentally nicking his finger in the process. "Why would you humiliate him like this?" The spacious Chicago mansion fell silent except for the soft hum of the heating system fighting against the January cold. Outside the large windows, snow was beginning to fall, adding to the already white landscape of the Gold Coast neighborhood. Louise straightened her back, all 5 feet 3 inches of her commanding attention despite Marcus towering over her. "He needs to be ready for tomorrow." "Ready?" Marcus's voice cracked. By making him look different from all his friends? By taking away his confidence when he needs it most? He knelt beside Jamal, placing his hands on his son's shoulders. "Baby, you don't have to do this. We can stop right now." Jamal's honey-brown eyes, so like his mother's, darted between his father and grandmother. But Grandma said, "It's all right," Marcus interrupted, pulling Jamal into a hug. The boy's newly exposed scalp felt alien under his palm. "We'll get you some nice hats. No one will even notice." Louise calmly picked up the fallen clippers and placed them on the dresser. "Marcus, we should talk about this downstairs." "There's nothing to talk about," Marcus said, his voice low and controlled despite the anger churning inside him. "You made a decision about my son without consulting me. That's not how things work in this house." 20 minutes earlier, Marcus had been sitting in his Tesla, rehearsing what he would say to potential investors about his company's new security software. The meeting had ended early, a rare occurrence, giving him unexpected time to check on Jamal before tomorrow's first chemotherapy session. He had planned to spend the evening reassuring his son that everything would be fine, that the best doctors in Chicago would take care of him, that his father's money and influence would ensure he got the very best treatment. Instead, he'd walked in on this. Louise picked up a small handheld mirror from the dresser. "Jamal, would you like to see how it looks?" "No, he wouldn't," Marcus answered before Jamal could speak. "Dad," Jamal said quietly, "I want to see." Marcus reluctantly stepped aside, watching his son take the mirror from Louise's weathered hands. Jamal examined his reflection with serious eyes, turning his head from side to side. "I look like that basketball player you like," Jamal said, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You look handsome," Louise said, her voice warm and certain. "And you're going to feel much better having this done now, trust me." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. There it was again, his mother's absolute certainty that she knew best. The same certainty she'd had when she moved into his house 3 weeks ago after Jamal's diagnosis, bringing with her decades of nursing experience and an unspoken criticism of how Marcus was handling the situation. "Jamal, why don't you clean up and get ready for dinner?" Marcus suggested, his tone softening when he addressed his son. "I need to talk to Grandma for a minute." Once Jamal had left the room, Marcus closed the door and faced his mother. "You had no right." "He needed it done," Louise replied calmly. "The chemo—" "I know what chemotherapy does," Marcus interrupted, his voice rising again. "I've read every article, talked to specialists across the country. I'm not ignorant about my son's condition. I never said you were. Then why go behind my back?" Why not discuss this with me first?" Marcus ran a hand over his close-cropped hair, a gesture he'd had since childhood when feeling frustrated. Louise began gathering the cut hair into a small dustpan she'd brought. "Would you have agreed?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus looked at the dark curls, so much like Angela's had been, now lifeless on the floor. His chest tightened with grief at this new loss, small compared to what was coming but painful nonetheless. "That's not the point," he finally said. "The point is that we make decisions about Jamal together. I'm his father. And I'm a nurse with 40 years of experience," Louise said, her voice remaining even. 25 of those in pediatrics. I've seen hundreds of children go through chemotherapy, Marcus. And I've built a billion-dollar technology company from nothing. I solve impossible problems every day." Marcus straightened his custom suit jacket, a habit from countless business confrontations. "I can handle my son's medical care." Louise finished cleaning up the hair and stood, wincing slightly as her knees protested. "This isn't about your business acumen or my nursing experience. It's about Jamal and what he needs." "What Jamal needs is normalcy," Marcus insisted. "He needs to feel like himself during treatment, not be reminded every time he looks in a mirror that he's sick." "What he needs is preparation," Louise countered. "Children handle cancer treatment better when they know what to expect, when changes happen on their terms." Marcus walked to the window, watching the snow fall more heavily now. 3 years ago, he'd stood at this same window after the doctors had called about Angela. Brain aneurysm. No warning. Nothing his money or power could fix. And now, Jamal. Leukemia. The word still felt like a foreign object in his mouth, something he couldn't quite shape properly. "He's already lost his mother," Marcus said, his back to Louise. "Now he's losing his health, his routine, and his hair. What's next?" The silence stretched between them until Louise spoke, her voice gentler now. "He hasn't lost you, and he hasn't lost me. We're both here, but we need to work together, not against each other." Marcus turned, composing his face into the expression he used when closing difficult business deals. "I have a meeting with Dr. Williams first thing tomorrow morning before Jamal's treatment. I want you there, but understand this. Major decisions about Jamal's care go through me first. That's non-negotiable." Louise nodded once, but her eyes told Marcus she wasn't conceding anything. She'd always been this way, appearing to yield while holding her ground. After she left the room, Marcus sat on Jamal's bed, picking up the Chicago Bulls basketball that his son treasured. The house felt too quiet, too clean, too orderly for the chaos they were facing. Despite the 60,000-square-foot mansion, the art collection worth millions, the staff that kept everything running smoothly, Marcus had never felt less in control. From down the hall came the sound of Jamal laughing at something Louise had said. Marcus closed his eyes, trying to hold on to that sound, storing it away like precious data. Tomorrow would bring the first of many chemotherapy sessions at Memorial Children's Hospital. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. Marcus checked his watch, a timepiece worth more than most people's cars. 6:30 in the evening. He still had time to review the latest information on leukemia treatments, to call the specialist he'd consulted in New York, to ensure everything was perfectly arranged for tomorrow. Because that's what Marcus Johnson did. He anticipated problems, he created solutions, he controlled outcomes. And no matter what his mother thought with her decades of nursing experience, he would approach his son's cancer the same way he'd built his empire, with determination, resources, and an absolute refusal to accept failure. His phone alarm chimed, reminding him of Jamal's medication schedule. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, they would arrive at Memorial Children's Hospital for the first chemotherapy session. Marcus had no way of knowing how unprepared he truly was for what lay ahead, despite all his planning, all his resources, and all his determination. Some lessons couldn't be bought, they had to be lived through. Marcus woke before his alarm the next morning. The winter sun had not yet risen over Chicago, leaving his bedroom in darkness. Sleep had been difficult. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Jamal sitting on that wooden stool surrounded by his fallen curls. Downstairs, he found Louise already in the kitchen. She wore a simple blue sweater and black pants, her silver hair neatly combed. She was preparing breakfast, moving efficiently around the space. "Good morning," Marcus said stiffly, pouring himself coffee. Louise nodded but didn't speak. The silence between them felt heavy, filled with yesterday's unresolved tension. The sound of footsteps on the stairs broke the quiet. Jamal appeared in the doorway wearing pajamas and a Chicago Bulls cap pulled low over his ears. "Morning, Dad." "Morning, Grandma," he said, his voice small but steady. Marcus tried to sound cheerful. "Hey, buddy. Ready for some breakfast before we head out?" Jamal climbed onto a stool at the kitchen island. "I'm not really hungry." "You need to eat something," Louise said, placing a plate of toast in front of him. "Just a few bites. It will help with the medicine later." Marcus watched his son pick up a piece of toast. Jamal's fingers kept drifting to the edge of his cap, adjusting it nervously. "Your hat looks cool," Marcus offered. "We can stop by the sports store this weekend and get you some more if you want." Jamal nodded without enthusiasm. The three ate in uncomfortable silence until it was time to leave. Outside, snow covered the ground from last night's storm. Marcus guided Jamal to the car while Louise followed with a bag she had packed with books, snacks, and a small blanket. During the drive to Memorial Children's Hospital, Marcus tried to focus on the road. In the rearview mirror, he could see Jamal in the back seat, staring out the window. The boy's hand kept moving to his cap, touching it as if to make sure it was still there. "The first day is mostly about getting comfortable with the process," Marcus said, repeating what he had read online. "The doctors will explain everything before they start." Jamal didn't respond. His fingers moved to the edge of his cap again, adjusting it. The hospital's parking garage was crowded. Marcus found a space and helped Jamal out of the car. The boy held his father's hand tightly as they walked toward the entrance, Louise following a step behind. Memorial Children's Hospital was bright and colorful, designed to seem less frightening to young patients. The walls of the lobby featured painted animals and cartoon characters. Despite these efforts, Marcus felt his stomach tighten as they approached the reception desk. "Jamal Johnson," he told the receptionist. 9 o'clock appointment with Dr. Williams." The woman smiled warmly at Jamal. "Hello there. If you'll follow the blue paw prints on the floor, they'll take you right to the pediatric oncology check-in." They followed the painted blue paw prints down a corridor until they reached another desk. A nurse with curly red hair greeted them. "You must be Jamal," she said kindly. "I'm Nurse Becky. I'll be helping take care of you today." She handed Jamal a hospital bracelet. "This is your special ticket for the day." Jamal allowed her to fasten the bracelet around his wrist, his eyes serious. "Dr. Williams will be with you soon," Nurse Becky said. "In the meantime, let's get you settled in your treatment room." The room was small but comfortable, with a reclining chair, a television mounted on the wall, and a window overlooking a garden now covered in snow. Colorful drawings from other children decorated the walls. "You can take your cap off and get comfortable, Jamal," Nurse Becky suggested. Jamal looked at Marcus uncertainly. "It's okay, buddy," Marcus assured him. "Whatever makes you comfortable." Slowly, Jamal removed his cap, revealing his shaved head. Marcus felt a fresh wave of anger toward Louise, seeing how vulnerable his son looked. A knock at the door announced the arrival of Dr. Sarah Williams. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a confident manner. "Good morning, Jamal," she said, then nodded to Marcus and Louise. "Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Johnson, it's good to meet you in person." Dr. Williams reviewed Jamal's chart on her tablet, then looked up with a smile. "I see you're all prepared," she said, nodding toward Jamal's shaved head. "That was good thinking." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" Dr. Williams looked slightly surprised. "Shaving the head before chemotherapy begins. Many families wait until the hair starts falling out, which can be very distressing for children. This way, Jamal gets to decide when it happens rather than having the cancer decide for him. She turned to Louise. Most parents don't think of that until we suggest it. I was a pediatric nurse for 25 years, Louise explained quietly. That explains it, Dr. Williams said with approval. Your experience will be very helpful during this journey. Marcus felt a sudden heat rush to his face. He glanced at Louise, who met his gaze briefly before turning back to Dr. Williams. There was no triumph in his mother's eyes, no "I told you so," only quiet certainty. Dr. Williams spent the next 20 minutes explaining Jamal's treatment plan. She used simple language, addressing many of her comments directly to Jamal. "Do you have any questions?" she asked when she finished. Jamal hesitated, then asked, "Will it hurt?" "There will be a pinch when we put the IV in," Dr. Williams answered honestly. "After that, you shouldn't feel pain from the medicine, but you might feel tired or sick to your stomach. If anything hurts or feels bad, you tell us right away, okay? That's your only job." Jamal nodded solemnly. "I'll send Nurse Becky in to get started," Dr. Williams said, standing. "I'll check on you again soon." After she left, Marcus turned to Louise. "You knew about the hair," he said quietly. Louise nodded. "Yes. You could have told me why you were doing it." "Would you have listened?" Louise asked, her voice gentle but direct. Before Marcus could answer, Nurse Becky returned with equipment for Jamal's IV. Louise immediately stepped forward to help Jamal prepare, showing him breathing techniques to use during the needle insertion. Marcus watched, feeling suddenly out of place. Once Jamal was connected to the IV and the medication had started, Louise settled into a chair beside him with a book she had brought. Marcus stepped out into the hallway, needing a moment alone. The pediatric oncology floor was busy with activity. Nurses moved efficiently between rooms. Other parents sat with their children or talked quietly in small groups. "First day?" a voice asked. Marcus turned to see a man about his age, tall with tired eyes and a gentle smile. "Yes," Marcus answered. "My son Jamal. He's 8. "I'm Michael Adams," the man said. "My daughter Emma is in room 4. She's 9, 2 years into treatment." 2 years, Marcus repeated, the words settling heavily. "I'm Marcus Johnson." "Coffee in the family room is surprisingly good," Michael offered. "Want to grab a cup?" New parent orientation, unofficial version. Marcus glanced back at Jamal's room where Louise was reading to his son. "I should stay." Michael nodded toward Louise. "Grandma seems to have things under control." 5 minutes. "Trust me, you need to pace yourself. This is a marathon, not a sprint." Reluctantly, Marcus followed Michael to a room down the hall. Several parents sat on couches or at small tables. A woman with blonde hair waved at Michael. "That's Jennifer, my wife," Michael explained. "Emma's having a procedure, so we're taking shifts." The coffee was in a large dispenser against one wall. Michael poured 2 cups and handed one to Marcus. "So, what do they tell you that the doctors don't?" Marcus asked. Michael smiled tiredly. "That's the right question. Look, the medical stuff is important, but it's not the hardest part. The hardest part is letting go of what you thought your child's life would be like and accepting what it is now." Marcus considered this. "I'm not sure I know what you mean. Before Emma got sick, we had all these plans. Soccer championships, summer camps, normal kid stuff." Michael took a sip of his coffee. "Now we celebrate different victories. A good blood count, a day without nausea, finding a movie that makes her laugh during treatment." Through the doorway, Marcus could see Louise speaking easily with one of the nurses, using medical terms he didn't understand. She looked completely at home in this environment that felt so foreign to him. "Your mom was a nurse?" Michael asked, following Marcus's gaze. "Yes. How did you know?" "The way she handles herself. Like she's been here before." Michael shrugged. "You're lucky. My wife and I had to learn everything the hard way." When they returned to Jamal's room, Marcus found his son looking pale. Louise held a small basin ready as Jamal suddenly leaned forward and vomited. "It's okay, baby," Louise soothed, rubbing Jamal's back in small circles. "This is normal. Just let it happen." Marcus rushed forward. "What's wrong? Should I call the doctor?" "Nausea is expected," Louise explained calmly. "The anti-nausea medication will kick in soon." She was right. Within minutes, Jamal settled back in his chair, looking tired but more comfortable. Marcus watched as Louise wiped his son's face with a cool cloth, knowing exactly what to do without being told. Hours later, as they drove home with an exhausted Jamal asleep in the back seat, Marcus broke the silence. "I didn't know about the hair," he said quietly. Louise looked over at him. "There's a lot to learn," she replied, "for both of us." Marcus nodded, his eyes on the road ahead. "I didn't know," he repeated, the words an admission more to himself than to her. That night, after Jamal was settled in bed, Marcus sat at his desk researching everything he could find about leukemia treatments. His computer screen glowed in the darkness as he read about clinical trials, experimental therapies, and success rates. He had always believed money could solve any problem. His billions could certainly buy the best medical care in the world. But as the night grew late, a new understanding began to form. Money couldn't buy the knowledge that Louise had acquired through decades of experience with suffering. Marcus closed his laptop and stood by the window, watching snow begin to fall again over Chicago. Tomorrow would bring another day of treatment, another day of learning how much he didn't know. For the first time since Jamal's diagnosis, Marcus wondered if perhaps he wasn't the one best equipped to lead this fight after all. 1 week after Jamal's first chemotherapy session, Marcus sat at the dining room table with a notebook open in front of him. He had filled 3 pages with notes from their morning appointment with Dr. Williams. The numbers from Jamal's blood tests, the names of medications, the potential side effects. He wrote everything down in neat, precise handwriting. "Dad, can I have apple juice?" Jamal asked, standing in the doorway. He wore a blue knit cap that Louise had bought him, covering his shaved head. "Of course, buddy," Marcus said, closing his notebook. "How are you feeling?" "Okay, not too sick today." Marcus went to the refrigerator and poured a small glass of juice. "Dr. Williams said your numbers looked good this morning." Jamal took the glass carefully. "Grandma explained what the numbers mean. The white blood cells are the fighters. Mine are getting stronger." "That's right," Marcus said, surprised by his son's understanding. "Your grandmother is pretty smart about these things. Where is she?" "On the phone with her friends from the hospital. Something about a grandparents group." Jamal nodded and took his juice to the living room where cartoons played on the large television. Marcus watched him go, noticing how carefully his son moved, how he held the glass with both hands to prevent spilling. Jamal had always been energetic, rushing from place to place. Now he moved with a deliberate caution that seemed wrong for an 8-year-old. Marcus returned to his notebook, adding another note. "Ask Dr. W about energy levels. Normal? How long?" In his home office, Marcus had created what Louise called Command Central. The large desk that once held paperwork for his technology company now displayed color-coded folders for each aspect of Jamal's treatment. A whiteboard on the wall tracked medication schedules and blood test results. 3 binders contained printouts of clinical trials and research papers. Marcus had always believed that gathering enough information would reveal the solution to any problem. Louise appeared in the doorway. "Jamal's resting on the couch," she said. "A good sign. He feels comfortable enough to nap in the open, not hiding in his room." "I've been updating his medication chart," Marcus said, gesturing to the whiteboard. "The anti-nausea medication seems to work better if we give it 30 minutes before meals." Louise nodded. "I noticed that too." She entered the room and looked over his organized displays. "This is impressive." "I like having all the information in one place," Marcus explained. "It helps me feel more prepared for appointments." "I've signed up for the grandparent support group at Memorial," Louise said. They meet while Jamal is in his children's group on Thursdays. Marcus looked up sharply. What children's group? The one for kids with cancer. I registered him yesterday. Dr. Williams recommended it? Marcus set down his pen. You registered him without discussing it with me first? Louise sat in the chair across from his desk. I mentioned it at breakfast 2 days ago. You were checking your emails. You nodded. Marcus didn't remember the conversation. Had he been that distracted? What exactly is this group? It's led by the hospital child psychologist. The children talk about their experiences, do art projects, play games. It helps them feel less alone. Marcus frowned. Does Jamal want to go? He was nervous at first, but when I told him about Emma, Michael's daughter, being in the group, he seemed interested. Marcus thought about Michael Adams and their conversation during Jamal's first treatment. Fine. But in the future, please make sure I'm actually listening before taking my nod as approval. Louise's expression remained neutral. Fair enough. The doorbell rang. Louise went to answer it while Marcus continued updating his charts. He heard voices in the hallway, then Louise appeared again with a woman in a business suit. Marcus, this is Ms. Peterson from Lakeside Academy. She's here to discuss Jamal's home tutoring program. Marcus had forgotten about this appointment. He quickly closed one of the research articles he'd been reading. Yes, please come in. Ms. Peterson explained how the school would provide a tutor 3 times a week to help Jamal keep up with his classwork. We've found that maintaining educational routines gives children with serious illnesses a sense of normalcy, she explained. Marcus nodded, taking notes. Will this be too tiring for him? The sessions are only 45 minutes, and our tutors are trained to work with children during medical treatment. If Jamal is too sick on any given day, we can reschedule. After Ms. Peterson left, Marcus found Louise in Jamal's bathroom, placing colorful stickers on the medicine bottles. What are those for? He asked. Red stickers for morning medicines, blue for evening, yellow for take as needed. It helps Jamal feel more involved in his care. Marcus watched as she organized the bottles in a small basket. You've done this before. Many times, Louise said. Each child is different, but the basics are the same. They need to feel some control in a situation where they have very little. Later that afternoon, Marcus's phone rang. It was his chief operating officer, Diane. Marcus, the London investors are concerned about the security patch delay. They've requested an emergency video conference at 6 tonight. Marcus checked his watch. It was already 4:30. That's in the middle of Jamal's dinner and medication time. I understand, but they're threatening to pull their funding. Millions of dollars are at stake. Marcus looked out the window where he could see Jamal sitting with Louise on the patio. Despite the cold, they had bundled up to get some fresh air. Jamal was laughing at something Louise had said. Schedule it, Marcus said finally. I'll make it work. By 5:45, Marcus had set up his laptop in the dining room. He wore a suit jacket over his casual shirt, creating a professional appearance for the video call. Louise prepared Jamal's dinner in the kitchen. At 5:58, Marcus's laptop chimed with an incoming call. He accepted it, greeting the 4 serious-faced investors on his screen. Gentlemen, thank you for making time for this discussion, he began. 5 minutes into the meeting, a crash came from the kitchen, followed by Jamal crying out. Marcus glanced toward the doorway. Excuse me one moment, he said to the investors. He muted his microphone and rushed to the kitchen. Jamal was on the floor, surrounded by broken glass. Louise knelt beside him, checking for cuts. What happened? Marcus asked. I got dizzy, Jamal said, his face pale. The room started spinning. Louise looked up at Marcus. His blood pressure might be dropping. This can happen with the medication. Should we call Dr. Williams? Go to the hospital? Marcus asked, fear rising in his chest. Let's check his vitals first, Louise said calmly. Help me get him to the couch. Marcus lifted Jamal carefully, feeling how light his son had become in just 1 week. He carried him to the living room couch while Louise retrieved the blood pressure monitor they'd purchased. Marcus suddenly remembered his video call. "I have to tell the investors." "Go," Louise said. "I've got this." Marcus returned to his laptop where 4 impatient faces waited. "I apologize for the interruption. My son is not well." "We understand your personal situation, Marcus," said the lead investor, a man named Richard. "But the security of our banking systems can't wait. We need to know when the patch will be ready." From the living room, Marcus heard Jamal vomit. Louise's voice came low and soothing. His son needed him. "Gentlemen, I'll have to call you back," Marcus said. "This meeting took weeks to arrange," Richard protested. "Millions of dollars," Marcus cut him off. "My son is sick. I need to be with him right now. Diane will reschedule." Without waiting for a response, Marcus ended the call. He hurried back to the living room where Louise was helping Jamal rinse his mouth. "His blood pressure is lower than normal, but not dangerously so," she reported. The dizziness triggered the nausea. "Should we call Dr. Williams?" "I already texted her. She said to monitor him and bring him in tomorrow if it happens again." Marcus sat beside Jamal, who leaned against him weakly. "I'm sorry about your meeting, Dad," the boy whispered. "Don't worry about that," Marcus said, his arm around his son's thin shoulders. "It wasn't important." Louise raised her eyebrows slightly, but said nothing. Later that night, after Jamal was asleep, Marcus found Louise in the kitchen making tea. "The investors are upset," he said. "Diane called. They're threatening to pull out of the deal." "Will that be a problem for your company?" Louise asked. Marcus shrugged. "Probably. But it's not a problem for us right now." Louise handed him a mug of tea. "That's the first time I've heard you say something like that." "Like what?" "Putting Jamal ahead of your business. Not just saying it, but doing it." Marcus hadn't thought about it that way. He'd simply reacted. When I heard him getting sick, nothing else mattered. They sat at the kitchen island, drinking tea in comfortable silence. Finally, Marcus spoke again. "I noticed something today. When Jamal talks to you, he tells you he's scared. When he talks to me, he pretends to be brave." Louise stirred her tea. "He doesn't want to disappoint you. But I don't want him to hide his feelings from me." "Children are very good at reading adults," Louise said. "He senses that you need him to be strong, so he tries to be. With me, he knows it's okay to be afraid." Marcus considered this. "How do I fix it?" "Let him see your fear," Louise suggested. "Not all of it. He doesn't need that burden. But enough to know it's okay for him to be scared, too." Marcus nodded slowly. His phone rang, displaying Diane's name again. He silenced it without answering. "The investors can wait until morning," he said. "I think I'll go sit with Jamal for a while." "He's asleep," Louise reminded him. "I know. I just want to be there." As Marcus climbed the stairs to his son's room, his phone vibrated with a text message from Dr. Williams. "Got Louise's update on Jamal. Let's discuss adjusting his medication at tomorrow's appointment, 9 a.m. Marcus added it to his calendar, then silenced his phone completely. He entered Jamal's room quietly and sat in the chair beside the bed. In sleep, his son looked peaceful, unbothered by cancer or treatment side effects. Marcus reached out and gently held Jamal's hand, careful not to wake him. For the first time since Angela died, Marcus felt the true weight of being a father, not just a provider or protector, but a presence. The certainty that had driven his business success seemed less important now. Here in the quiet darkness of his son's room, with Jamal's small hand in his, Marcus understood that some problems couldn't be solved with spreadsheets and research. Some problems could only be endured together. 3 weeks later, Marcus and Louise sat across from Dr. Williams in her office at Memorial Children's Hospital. The morning sun streamed through the window, casting light on the colorful children's artwork that decorated the walls. Dr. Williams slid a folder across her desk. "These are Jamal's latest test results," she said, her face serious. His blood counts aren't responding to the standard protocol as well as I'd hoped." Marcus opened the folder. Although he had learned to understand many of the medical terms over the past weeks, seeing the numbers in black and white made his stomach tighten. "What does this mean?" he asked, his voice steady despite his rising fear. "It means we need to adjust his treatment plan," Dr. Williams explained. "The leukemia cells are proving more resistant than we initially thought." Louise leaned forward. "What adjustments are you suggesting?" "I'd like to modify his medication dosage and schedule. It's not unusual to make these kinds of changes. Each child's body responds differently." Marcus closed the folder. "Is there a more aggressive approach we could take? Something beyond the standard protocol?" Dr. Williams tilted her head. "There are other options, but I believe this adjustment is the appropriate next step. Too aggressive an approach can create unnecessary suffering without better results." "I understand," Marcus said, though his mind was already racing ahead. "But I'd like to explore all possibilities." In the treatment room, Jamal sat quietly while a nurse connected his IV. He had lost weight in the past 3 weeks, his face thinner, his eyes larger. The blue knit cap he wore was now too big and slipped down over his forehead. "How are you feeling today, buddy?" Marcus asked, sitting beside him. "Tired," Jamal said. "When can I go back to school? I miss my friends." "Soon," Marcus promised. "We need to get your numbers looking better first." Louise arranged Jamal's blanket. "Remember what Dr. Williams said? You can try going for half-days next week if you feel strong enough." Jamal brightened slightly. "Can I show Ryan my new hats?" "Of course," Louise said. "I bet he'll think they're cool." While Jamal received his treatment, Marcus stepped into the hallway and made a phone call. He spoke quietly, but his voice carried the authority that had built his billion-dollar company. "I need to speak with Dr. Thompson at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York," he said. "Tell him Marcus Johnson is calling about a pediatric leukemia case, my son." By the time they arrived home, Marcus had arranged for Dr. Patricia Thompson, a leading pediatric oncologist, to fly to Chicago for a consultation in 2 days. He announced this at dinner. "Who is Dr. Thompson?" Louise asked, serving Jamal his special anti-nausea meal of plain rice and baked chicken. "One of the top leukemia specialists in the country," Marcus replied. "She's pioneered several treatment protocols for resistant cases." Louise set down her fork. "Did Dr. Williams recommend this consultation?" "No, I arranged it myself. We need to explore every option." Louise glanced at Jamal, who was pushing food around his plate without eating. "Could we discuss this later?" she said quietly. After Jamal went to bed, Louise confronted Marcus in his home office. "You should have talked to me before bringing in another doctor," she said. Marcus looked up from his computer where he'd been researching clinical trials. "I'm trying to make sure Jamal gets the best possible care. Dr. Williams is excellent. She's been treating children with leukemia for 20 years. And Dr. Thompson has been doing it for 30, Marcus countered. "What's wrong with getting a second opinion?" Louise crossed her arms. "Nothing, if that's all it is." "But I know you, Marcus. You've decided Dr. Williams isn't aggressive enough, and you're looking for someone who will give you the answer you want." "I want my son to get better." We all do," Louise said. "But there's more to consider than just attacking the cancer. There's Jamal's quality of life during treatment. What good is quality of life if he doesn't survive?" Marcus's voice rose despite his effort to stay calm. "This isn't an either-or situation," Louise replied. "Effective treatment doesn't have to mean maximum suffering." Marcus turned back to his computer. "Dr. Thompson will be here Wednesday at 2. You're welcome to join us, but I'm not canceling." 2 days later, Dr. Thompson arrived at the Johnson mansion. She was a tall woman with silver hair and a confident manner. Marcus led her to his home office where he had arranged Jamal's medical records in precise order. "I appreciate your time, Dr. Thompson," Marcus said. "I've scheduled a video call with Dr. Williams to discuss your thoughts." When Dr. Williams appeared on the large screen mounted on the wall, the tension was immediate. The two doctors exchanged professional greetings, but their disagreement became clear as they discussed Jamal's case. "I would recommend moving to a more intensive chemotherapy regimen immediately," Dr. Thompson stated. "The initial response indicates potential resistance that should be addressed aggressively." Dr. Williams shook her head. "I believe that's premature. The modified standard protocol I've suggested gives us the best balance of effectiveness with manageable side effects. Going more aggressive now leaves us fewer options if we need them later." Louise, who had been sitting quietly, spoke up. "What would the side effects be with the more intensive approach?" Dr. Thompson listed them clinically: increased nausea, higher risk of infection, potential damage to organs, longer hospital stays. Marcus listened intently, making notes. When the call ended, he thanked both doctors and promised to consider their recommendations carefully. "You've already decided, haven't you?" Louise asked after Dr. Thompson left. "I think Dr. Thompson's approach makes sense," Marcus admitted. "Hit the cancer hard now. Don't give it a chance to get stronger. And the side effects? The suffering? Have you considered what that will mean for Jamal day to day?" Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Lakeside Academy. Marcus answered immediately. "Mr. Johnson? This is Principal Winters. There's been an incident involving Jamal. He's in my office now. He's not hurt, but I need you to come to the school." Marcus grabbed his keys. "What happened?" "I'd prefer to discuss it in person. Jamal had an altercation with another student." At Lakeside Academy, Marcus found Jamal sitting in the principal's office, his eyes red from crying. Principal Winters, a serious woman with kind eyes, greeted Marcus and explained the situation. "Jamal punched Ryan Miller during lunch period," she said. "This is completely out of character for Jamal, which is why I wanted to speak with you directly rather than simply following our standard disciplinary procedure." Marcus knelt beside Jamal's chair. "What happened, buddy?" "Ryan is your friend." Jamal looked down, his hands twisting in his lap. "He said I look weird. He asked if I was contagious." Everyone laughed. Marcus felt a surge of anger toward Ryan, followed by deep sadness for his son. "Words hurt, but we don't solve problems by hitting, right?" Jamal nodded miserably. "Am I expelled?" Principal Winters smiled gently. "No, Jamal. But we do need to talk about better ways to handle these situations." She turned to Marcus. "I've spoken with Ryan and his parents. They understand the circumstances and are very concerned about Jamal. Ryan would like to apologize." On the drive home, Jamal was quiet. Finally, he spoke. "Dad, do I have to go back to school? Can't I just have the tutor all the time?" Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Is that what you want?" "I don't know. When I'm at the hospital with the other kids in my group, nobody thinks I look weird. They understand." Marcus looked sharply at his son. "What group?" "The kids' group. Grandma takes me on Thursdays when you have your business calls. Emma is there too." Marcus remembered Louise mentioning a children's support group weeks ago, but he hadn't realized Jamal had been attending regularly. Another decision made without his full awareness. At home, Marcus found Louise in the kitchen. "Jamal had an incident at school today. He punched another boy." Louise looked shocked. "That doesn't sound like Jamal." "The boy made fun of how he looks." Marcus ran a hand over his face. "He also mentioned a support group at the hospital that you've been taking him to. Why didn't you tell me this was ongoing?" "I did tell you. You've been distracted." Louise dried her hands on a towel. "The group has been good for him. He needs to talk to other children who understand what he's going through." "That should have been my decision too," Marcus said. "Just like the treatment options should be something we decide together, not you pushing your opinion or me bringing in specialists without discussion." Louise was quiet for a moment. "You're right. We're both trying to help Jamal in our own ways, but we're not communicating." That night, Marcus found Jamal sitting on his bed holding the blanket his mother had made him. He looked small and vulnerable. "Dad," Jamal said, "are you and Grandma fighting about me?" Marcus sat beside him. "We both want what's best for you. Sometimes we disagree about what that is." I heard you talking about different doctors and medicines." Jamal's voice was small. "Are you fighting because I'm not getting better?" Marcus felt his heart break. "Jamal, listen to me. You are getting better. It's just taking time, and adults get scared and impatient. That's not your fault." "I'm scared too," Jamal whispered. "What if I'm never better? What if I die like Mom?" Marcus pulled his son into his arms, feeling the fragile bones beneath his thin pajamas. "We are doing everything possible to make you well," he promised. Everything. Late that night, Marcus sat alone in his office, surrounded by research papers and clinical trial information. Multiple coffee cups littered his desk as he searched for answers for certainty. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Michael Adams, Emma's dad. Got your number from Louise. Emma took a turn for the worse today. If you're up, could use someone to talk to who understands. Memorial Hospital, room 412. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Then he grabbed his jacket and car keys. Some problems couldn't be solved with research or specialists or money. Some problems required simply being present, as Louise had taught him. And right now, another father needed that presence. Marcus arrived at Memorial Hospital just after midnight. The corridors were quiet as he made his way to room 412, where Michael Adams was sitting beside his daughter's bed. Emma looked small beneath the hospital blankets, her face pale, her breathing assisted by oxygen. "Thanks for coming," Michael said softly. "The doctors had to increase her medication. She's stable now." Marcus sat in the chair beside Michael. "I'm glad I could be here. How are you holding up?" "1 hour at a time," Michael replied, rubbing his tired eyes. "Jennifer went home to shower and sleep for a few hours. Emma's been fighting so long." They talked quietly while Emma slept, Michael sharing stories about his daughter's courage, Marcus listening and offering silent support. When Marcus finally left at 3 in the morning, he felt both drained and somehow strengthened by the connection with another father facing the unthinkable. The following morning, Marcus had an important board meeting at his company headquarters in downtown Chicago. It was the first time he had personally presented to the board since Jamal's diagnosis. The 12 members were gathered around a long table when Marcus entered, carrying a tablet with his presentation. "Good morning," he said, his voice commanding the room despite his exhaustion. "Thank you all for your patience during this difficult period. Today I want to discuss our security protocol expansion and the European market potential." Marcus moved through his slides with practiced ease, answering questions and explaining complex technology in simple terms. He was in the middle of describing a new security feature when his private phone vibrated in his pocket. He glanced at it briefly, intending to ignore the call, then froze when he saw Memorial Hospital on the screen. "Excuse me," he said to the board members. "I need to take this call." Marcus stepped into the hallway, his heart pounding. "This is Marcus Johnson. Mr. Johnson, this is Nurse Rivera from Memorial Children's Hospital. Jamal has been admitted to the intensive care unit with a severe infection. Dr. Williams asked me to call you immediately." "What happened?" Marcus demanded, his voice sharp with fear. His temperature spiked suddenly at home. "Your mother called an ambulance. Jamal's immune system is severely compromised from the chemotherapy, and what would normally be a minor infection has become serious." "I'm on my way," Marcus said. He returned to the boardroom only long enough to grab his things. "I apologize, but my son has been hospitalized. Diane will continue the presentation." Without waiting for responses, Marcus rushed to the elevator and then to his car. Traffic slowed his progress through downtown Chicago, each red light an agony of waiting. He called the hospital repeatedly for updates, but was told only that Jamal was receiving treatment. When Marcus finally arrived at Memorial's pediatric intensive care unit, he found doctors and nurses surrounding Jamal's bed. His son looked tiny and fragile amid the medical equipment, his skin gray against the white sheets. Louise stood at the foot of the bed speaking calmly to a young resident. He received his last dose of antibiotics at 10:15 this morning, she was saying. His temperature was 103.8 at that time. Marcus rushed to Jamal's side. What's happening? Is he going to be okay? Dr. Williams turned from adjusting an IV. Marcus, Jamal has developed a bacterial infection. His immune system is too weak to fight it off. But you can treat it, right? Marcus looked frantically between the doctor and his son. We're giving him powerful antibiotics, Dr. Williams explained. The next 24 hours will be critical. His body is very weak from the chemotherapy. Louise touched Marcus's arm. The ambulance came quickly. He's getting everything he needs. Marcus noticed how calm his mother seemed, how easily she communicated with the medical team using terminology he still struggled to understand. While his own panic made it difficult to think clearly, Louise was focused and helpful. As the day progressed, Jamal drifted in and out of consciousness. His fever rose and fell, never dropping to normal. Machines beeped steadily, monitoring his vital signs. Louise rarely left his side, applying cool cloths to his forehead and speaking to him softly even when he couldn't respond. A social worker stopped by, offering support services. Marcus barely acknowledged her, but Louise accepted her card and thanked her for information about the family sleeping rooms. Evening came, and the hospital grew quieter. Marcus sat in a chair beside Jamal's bed, watching the monitors anxiously. Every small change in the readings sent a jolt of fear through him. You should try to sleep for a few hours, Louise suggested. I'll watch him. I can't sleep, Marcus said. I should have been there when it happened. I was at a board meeting while my son was fighting for his life. You couldn't have known, Louise said gently. Marcus rubbed his eyes. I keep thinking about Michael and Emma, seeing them last night. I can't lose Jamal, Mom, I can't. The rare use of Mom instead of her name revealed Marcus's emotional state. Louise moved her chair closer to his. I know, she said simply. When Angela died, I promised myself I would protect Jamal from everything, Marcus continued, his voice breaking. I thought with enough money, enough resources, enough control, I could keep him safe. But I can't control cancer. I can't control infections. I feel so helpless. Louise took his hand. That's what being a parent is sometimes, being present through the helpless moments. How do you stay so calm? Marcus asked. I'm not always calm inside, Louise admitted, but I learned a long time ago that my panic doesn't help the patient. Jamal needs our strength right now, not our fear. Around 3 in the morning, Jamal's fever spiked dangerously high. A nurse rushed in to check the monitors, followed by a doctor Marcus hadn't met before. We need to adjust his medication, the doctor said, examining Jamal quickly. His body is fighting hard, but he needs more support. Louise stood beside the doctor, asking questions about specific medications and treatments. She seemed to know what to ask before the doctor had fully explained the situation. How do you know all this? Marcus asked when they were alone again. 40 years of nursing, Louise replied. 25 with children. You learn to read the signs before the machines start beeping. You learn what questions need answers. Throughout the night, Louise demonstrated this knowledge repeatedly. She called for a nurse moments before Jamal's oxygen levels dropped. She recognized the signs of discomfort before Jamal could voice them. She knew exactly how to position him to ease his breathing when he struggled. Dawn came with pale light through the ICU windows. Jamal's condition remained serious but had stabilized slightly. His fever had decreased by 2 degrees, and his breathing seemed less labored. Dr. Williams arrived early to check on him. He's responding to the antibiotics, she said. That's a good sign. But he's still very sick. We need to continue monitoring him closely. When she left, Marcus noticed a small notebook on Louise's lap. What's that? He asked. My journal, Louise explained. I've been keeping notes since Jamal was diagnosed. Medical information, his reactions to treatments, questions for the doctors. She opened it to show him pages of neat handwriting, but also the good moments, things he says, small victories, days when he feels strong enough to play. Marcus took the journal carefully. As he turned the pages, he found not only medical notes but observations about Jamal's emotional state, activities that brought him joy despite his illness, and practical tips for making hospital stays more comfortable. One entry caught his attention. Jamal asked about heaven today. Said he's not ready to see his mom yet but wanted to know if she can see him. Told him love doesn't need eyes to see. He seemed comforted by this. Marcus looked up at Louise. "You've been having these conversations with him? About death?" "He brings it up sometimes," Louise said. "Children often do when they're seriously ill. They need honest answers, given with love." "I've been avoiding those conversations," Marcus admitted. "I thought they would frighten him more." "Children can sense when we're hiding things," Louise said. "That creates more fear, not less." As morning fully arrived, Jamal opened his eyes. He looked confused, then scared as he registered the unfamiliar room and equipment. "Dad?" he called weakly. Marcus moved instantly to his side. "I'm here, buddy." "Grandma, too." "What happened?" Jamal asked. "You got sick very suddenly," Marcus explained. "The doctors are giving you medicine to help fight the infection." "Am I going to die?" Jamal asked directly, his eyes moving between his father and grandmother. Marcus felt his throat tighten. In the past, he would have quickly reassured Jamal, making promises he couldn't keep. Instead, he took his son's hand and answered with careful honesty. "The doctors are doing everything they can to make you better. Your body is fighting hard. We don't know exactly what will happen, but we're here with you every step of the way." Louise nodded her approval from the other side of the bed. Jamal seemed to consider this answer, then closed his eyes again. "I'm really tired," he whispered. "Sleep, baby," Louise said softly. "We'll be right here." As Jamal drifted back to sleep, Marcus found himself watching Louise. Throughout the crisis, she had shown a kind of wisdom he hadn't fully appreciated before, knowing when to act, when to wait, what to say, and how to comfort. While he had been fighting against Jamal's cancer as an enemy to be defeated, Louise had been teaching their boy how to live with his illness with dignity and even moments of joy. In the quiet of the ICU room, with monitors beeping steadily and morning light growing stronger through the windows, Marcus made a decision. He stepped into the hallway and made a call to his company's CEO, Diane. "I need you to take over completely," he said without preamble. "Not just the presentation, not just this week. I'm taking a 6-month leave of absence, effective immediately." Diane was silent for a moment. "I understand," she finally said. "The company will be here when you're ready to come back. Jamal needs you now." "Thank you," Marcus said, surprised by how easy the decision felt once he made it. For years, his company had been his primary focus, the source of his identity and pride. Now it seemed almost insignificant compared to the quiet room behind him where his son fought for his life. When he returned to Jamal's bedside, Louise looked up at him with a question in her eyes. "I just called Diane," Marcus explained quietly. "I'm taking 6 months off to focus on Jamal's treatment." The surprise that crossed Louise's face told Marcus how unexpected this decision was, how fundamental a shift it represented in his priorities. But in the gentle smile that followed, he saw something else: approval, respect, and perhaps a hint of pride in the son she had raised. 3 days later, Jamal was released from the hospital. His infection had responded to the powerful antibiotics, though his body remained weak from the ordeal. Marcus drove carefully through the Chicago streets, glancing frequently at his son in the rearview mirror. Jamal sat quietly in the back seat, a blanket wrapped around his thin shoulders despite the car's heating system. "It feels good to be going home," Louise said from the passenger seat. Jamal nodded but didn't speak. The hospital stay had drained what little energy he'd had. When they arrived at the mansion, Jamal's eyes widened in surprise. The main entrance had a new ramp beside the stairs, allowing easier access for days when walking might be difficult. "Did you do that, Dad?" Jamal asked. "Yes," Marcus said, helping him from the car. "I made some other changes too. Want to see?" Inside, the formal living room had been transformed. The expensive but uncomfortable designer furniture was gone, replaced by soft couches and chairs arranged to create a cozy space. A large television had been mounted on the wall, with gaming systems organized below it. "This is all for me?" Jamal asked. "For all of us," Marcus replied. "I thought we needed a more comfortable place to spend time together." Louise touched Marcus's arm, a gesture of approval. "There's more," Marcus said, leading them toward the east wing of the house. The guest room nearest to Jamal's bedroom had been converted into a recovery space. It contained a hospital-style bed that could be adjusted for comfort, medical supplies neatly organized in cabinets, and monitoring equipment similar to what they used at the hospital. But unlike the clinical environment of Memorial, this room had been painted in Jamal's favorite colors, with Chicago Bulls posters on the walls and shelves filled with books and games. "For days when you don't feel well enough to be downstairs," Marcus explained. "Dr. Williams helped me decide what equipment we needed." "When did you do all this?" Louise asked. "I called contractors the day after I spoke with Diane," Marcus said. "They worked while we were at the hospital." Jamal moved slowly around the room, touching things with curiosity. "It doesn't feel scary like the hospital." "That was the goal," Marcus said. "And there's one more thing outside." In the backyard, workers were finishing the installation of a small basketball court. It was half the size of a regular court, with an adjustable hoop that could be lowered for easier play. "For good days," Marcus explained. "The surface is softer than concrete, easier on your body." Jamal's face brightened for the first time since the hospital. "Can we try it?" "When you're stronger," Marcus promised. "Dr. Williams said you need to rest for a few days first." That evening, after Jamal was asleep in his room, Louise found Marcus in his office. The space looked different. The walls, once covered with awards and business achievements, now displayed Jamal's artwork and family photos. "You've made a lot of changes," Louise observed. Marcus nodded. "I realized something in the hospital. I've been approaching Jamal's cancer like a business problem, something I could solve with enough money and the right resources. And now? Now I understand it's not about solving, it's about supporting, being present like you said." Marcus gestured to his desk where Jamal's treatment schedule was displayed alongside a calendar of his company's major events. "I've asked Diane to handle the day-to-day operations, but I'll still consult on important decisions." Louise sat in the chair opposite his desk. "I'm proud of you, Marcus. This hasn't been easy." "I have a favor to ask," Marcus said. "Would you mind if I joined you at that support group you mentioned? The one for families of children with cancer?" Louise's surprise showed on her face. "Of course you can come." The next meeting is Thursday evening. 2 days later, Marcus found himself sitting in a circle of chairs in Memorial Hospital's community room. Around him sat parents, grandparents, and other caregivers of children with cancer. The group was diverse. People from different backgrounds, races, and economic situations, all united by the same struggle. A woman named Linda facilitated the meeting. "We have a new member tonight," she said warmly. "Marcus, would you like to introduce yourself?" Marcus cleared his throat. "I'm Marcus Johnson. My son Jamal is 8 and was diagnosed with leukemia 2 months ago." "Welcome, Marcus," the group responded. As the meeting progressed, Marcus listened to stories both heartbreaking and hopeful. A father described his daughter's difficult reaction to a new medication. A grandmother shared techniques for helping her grandson deal with nausea. A mother celebrated her child's first day back at school after 6 months of treatment. When Marcus finally spoke again, his usual confidence was gone. "I thought I could control this," he admitted. I've always been able to fix problems in my business life. But cancer doesn't care about my money or my connections." An older man named Frank nodded. "Took me a while to learn that too. My grandson's been fighting brain cancer for 3 years. You can't strong-arm cancer, but you can help your child face it with dignity." After the meeting, Marcus approached Frank. "You mentioned some ways to help children talk about their feelings. Could you tell me more about that?" Frank smiled. "Sure. Want to grab a coffee? The cafeteria here isn't fancy, but it's still open." Over coffee in the hospital cafeteria, Marcus learned more practical information about helping a child with cancer than he had from all his research and specialist consultations. Frank shared tips about managing school expectations, dealing with well-meaning but unhelpful relatives, and creating moments of normalcy amid treatment routines. "The biggest thing I learned," Frank said, "is that kids don't need us to have all the answers. They just need us to be honest and consistent." When Marcus returned home that night, he found Louise in the kitchen making tea. "How was it?" she asked. "Eye-opening," Marcus admitted. "I was the only one there who arrived in a luxury car. But once we started talking, none of that mattered. Cancer doesn't care if you're rich or poor." "That's what I've been trying to tell you," Louise said gently. The next morning, Marcus created a new organizational system for managing Jamal's care. He and Louise sat at the kitchen table with calendars, notebooks, and Jamal's treatment schedule. "I think we need to divide responsibilities," Marcus suggested. "You're better at the caregiving aspects, the emotional support, the practical medical knowledge. I'm good at organization and logistics." Louise nodded. "That makes sense. Using our strengths instead of competing with each other." Together, they created a color-coded calendar that clearly outlined who would handle which aspects of Jamal's care. Marcus would manage appointments, research, and communication with the school. Louise would focus on daily care, medication management, and emotional support. "We should include Jamal in appropriate decisions," Louise suggested. "Giving him choices helps him feel some control." "Agreed," Marcus said. "We can let him choose which parent takes him to which appointments, what activities he feels up to each day." When Jamal came downstairs for breakfast, he found his father and grandmother working together harmoniously for the first time since his diagnosis. The change wasn't lost on him. "Are you guys friends now?" he asked, climbing onto a stool at the kitchen island. Marcus and Louise exchanged glances. "We've always been family," Louise said. "But yes, we're working together better now." "Good," Jamal said simply. "I didn't like when you fought about my medicine and stuff." Marcus felt a pang of regret that their conflicts had been so obvious to Jamal. "We're going to try very hard not to do that anymore." Over the next few weeks, the new arrangement proved successful. Jamal began to regain strength after the infection. On good days, Marcus would take him out to the basketball court, where they would shoot hoops gently for short periods. On difficult days after chemotherapy, Louise would sit with him in the recovery room, reading or simply keeping him company while he rested. Dr. Williams noticed the change during Jamal's follow-up appointment. "You look better," she told Jamal. "Your color is improved, and your latest blood work shows progress." "I feel better," Jamal said. "Not super good, but better than before." Dr. Williams turned to Marcus and Louise. "Whatever you're doing at home, keep it up. I'm seeing real improvement." Marcus felt a surge of pride, not in himself, but in their family unit and how they had adapted. "We've made some changes," he explained. "Louise and I are working as a team now." That evening, Marcus received a call from Diane about a potential crisis at the company. A security breach had been detected in their London office system. "The team is handling it," Diane assured him, "but the London investors are demanding to speak with you directly. They say they've lost confidence in anyone else." In the past, Marcus would have immediately jumped on a video call, possibly even flown to London to manage the situation personally. Now he looked at the calendar on his desk where "Movie Night with Jamal" was written in his son's messy handwriting. "Have the team send me their initial assessment," Marcus said. "I'll review it and call the investors tomorrow morning. Their working day will just be starting and I'll have had time to fully understand the situation." "They won't be happy about waiting," Diane warned. "I understand," Marcus replied calmly. "But my son and I have plans tonight that can't be rescheduled." After ending the call, Marcus joined Jamal and Louise in the new living room. Jamal had selected an action movie about superheroes and was already settled on the couch with a blanket and snacks that wouldn't upset his stomach. "Everything okay?" Louise asked quietly, noticing Marcus's expression. "Just work," Marcus replied. "Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow." As the movie began, Jamal leaned against Marcus's side. "Dad?" "Yes, buddy?" "Thanks for being home more. It makes the hard stuff easier." Marcus pulled his son closer, feeling the fragile weight of him. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." Later that night, after Jamal was asleep, Marcus checked his phone. There were several urgent messages from the London investors demanding immediate attention. In his old life, these would have sent him into crisis mode, working through the night to resolve the issue. Instead, he sent a brief, professional response. "I've reviewed the initial security report. We'll discuss detailed response plan on our call tomorrow at 9 a.m. your time. The situation is being monitored continuously by our security team." He then silenced his phone and placed it in a drawer. On his desk sat Louise's journal, which she had lent him to read. Her careful observations of Jamal's journey had become a guide for him, helping him understand aspects of his son's experience he might otherwise have missed. As he read about a conversation between Jamal and Louise about heaven and angels, Marcus realized how much he had been missing by focusing only on the medical aspects of Jamal's illness. Louise had been teaching Jamal how to live with cancer, while Marcus had only been fighting against it. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: the investor call, Jamal's next treatment session, the ongoing battle against leukemia. But for the first time since the diagnosis, Marcus felt they were facing these challenges as a united family, each bringing their unique strengths to support Jamal. The door to his office opened slowly, and Michael Adams peered in. "Got your text. Hope it's not too late to stop by." "Not at all," Marcus said, closing Louise's journal. "Come in. How's Emma doing?" Michael Adams slumped into the chair across from Marcus, exhaustion visible in every line of his face. His clothes looked rumpled, as if he'd been wearing them for days. "Emma's cancer is back," he said, his voice hollow. "The doctors found new leukemia cells in her last bone marrow test. After 2 years of treatment, after everything she's been through, it's returned more aggressively than before." Marcus felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. What are the doctors saying? Michael rubbed his face with both hands. "They're trying a new protocol, but they've been honest with us. The chances aren't good when leukemia returns this aggressively." He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "I wanted to tell you in person. Jamal and Emma have become friends, and she's been asking about him." "I'm so sorry," Marcus said, the words feeling completely inadequate. "What can we do to help?" "Nothing, really, Michael's voice broke. "I needed to talk to someone who understands. Jennifer is trying to be strong for Emma, and I'm trying to be strong for both of them." They talked until past midnight, Michael sharing fears that Marcus had barely allowed himself to consider. When Michael finally left, Marcus remained in his office, staring at the family photo on his desk. Himself, Angela, and a 4-year-old Jamal, all smiling, unaware of what the future held. The next morning, Marcus and Louise accompanied Jamal to Memorial Children's Hospital to begin his new, more aggressive chemotherapy protocol. Dr. Williams had explained that while Jamal was showing improvement, they needed to intensify treatment to ensure the best possible outcome. In the treatment room, Nurse Becky connected Jamal to the IV line. "This medicine is stronger than what you've had before," she explained gently. "It might make you feel sicker for a while, but it's working harder to kill the cancer cells." Jamal nodded solemnly. He had lost more weight in the past month, his face thinner, his eyes seeming larger in his pale face. The baseball cap he wore, one of many Louise had bought him, was slightly too big and kept slipping down over his forehead. "How long will this stronger medicine last?" Jamal asked. 6 weeks, Dr. Williams answered, adjusting the flow rate on the IV. "Then we'll do more tests to see how it's working." Marcus sat beside Jamal, holding his hand. "Remember what we talked about? This is like the hard part of a video game. You have to get through the difficult level to win." Jamal attempted a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, but in games you can try again if you lose. This is just one try." The wisdom in his son's words caught Marcus off guard. Before he could respond, Jamal continued. "Dad, did you know Emma's sick again? Her mom told me yesterday on the phone." "Yes, I know," Marcus said carefully. "Michael, her dad, told me last night." "Is she going to die?" Jamal asked directly. Louise moved closer, placing her hand on Jamal's shoulder. "The doctors are working very hard to help her, just like they're working hard to help you." "But sometimes people still die even with doctors helping," Jamal persisted, "like Mom did." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "That's true. Sometimes the medicine doesn't work or the sickness is too strong, but that doesn't mean we stop trying." The first week of Jamal's new treatment protocol was brutal. The stronger drugs caused severe nausea that medication couldn't fully control. Painful mouth sores developed, making it difficult for him to eat or drink. His energy plummeted, leaving him too weak to walk to the bathroom without help. Marcus and Louise took turns sitting with him day and night. They helped him sip water through a straw, applied special ointment to his cracked lips, and read to him when he couldn't sleep due to discomfort. One night, after a particularly difficult day of treatment, Marcus was alone with Jamal in the recovery room they had created. Louise had gone to sleep after being up the previous night. Jamal had been restless for hours, unable to find a comfortable position due to the bone pain that was a side effect of his medication. "Dad," Jamal whispered, his voice raspy from the mouth sores. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything, buddy," Marcus said, adjusting the cool cloth on Jamal's forehead. "Am I going to die like Mom did?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus had been dreading this moment, yet knew it was inevitable. In the past, he might have offered quick reassurances or changed the subject. Now, looking at his son's serious eyes, he knew Jamal deserved honesty. "I don't know," Marcus admitted, his voice gentle but steady. "The doctors are doing everything they can to make you better, and your body is fighting hard. But I can't promise you what will happen." Jamal was quiet for a moment. "I'm scared," he finally said. "Me too," Marcus confessed, taking his son's thin hand. "But being scared is okay. It doesn't mean we give up." "Does it hurt? Dying, I mean." Marcus felt his eyes fill with tears. "I don't know that either. But I believe that whatever happens, you'll never be alone. Mom would be there waiting if it ever came to that. But right now, we're focusing on getting you well." "I don't want to leave you and Grandma," Jamal whispered. "We don't want that either. That's why we're fighting so hard together." Jamal seemed to consider this. "If the medicine is supposed to help me, why does it make me feel so bad?" "Because it has to be strong enough to kill the cancer cells," Marcus explained. "It's like when we clean the house with strong chemicals. They get rid of the dirt, but they smell bad and can hurt your skin if you touch them. So, I feel bad now to feel better later?" "Exactly. But if it ever feels too bad, you tell us. There are things the doctors can do to help with the side effects." Jamal nodded, his eyelids growing heavy. "I'm really tired." "Sleep, buddy, I'll be right here." As Jamal drifted off to sleep, Marcus remained beside him, thinking about their conversation. For the first time, he had been completely honest with his son about the uncertainty they faced. Strangely, it felt right, respecting Jamal enough to share the truth even when that truth was frightening. The next morning, Louise found Marcus still in the recovery room, asleep in the chair beside Jamal's bed. After Marcus told her about their nighttime conversation, she nodded approvingly. "You did the right thing," she said. "Children can handle truth better than we give them credit for. It's the secrets and whispers that frighten them more." Later that week, Louise surprised them both by transforming the sunroom into a space-themed party zone, complete with hanging planets and stars. "What's all this?" Jamal asked, his eyes wide as Marcus wheeled him into the room in a wheelchair they now kept at home for days when walking was too difficult. "Your half-birthday celebration," Louise announced. "Since your real birthday is 6 months from now, I thought we should celebrate the halfway point." "People don't usually celebrate half-birthdays," Jamal said, but he was smiling, a rare sight these days. "Well, we're not usual people," Louise replied. "Now I've invited a few special guests if you're feeling up to it." To Marcus's surprise, 3 children from Jamal's support group at the hospital arrived with their parents. Each child was also undergoing cancer treatment, so they understood Jamal's limitations and the precautions needed to prevent infection. One of the children, a 10-year-old boy named Tyler, brought Jamal a set of special beanies he had made himself. "My aunt taught me to use a loom," he explained. "These are super soft and don't itch when your head is sensitive from treatment." The children played board games and watched a movie while enjoying small servings of ice cream that Louise had verified wouldn't irritate Jamal's mouth sores. Though the gathering lasted only 2 hours, the change in Jamal was remarkable. He laughed, his eyes brightened, and he seemed momentarily free from the burden of his illness. After the guests left, Jamal rested on the couch, tired but content. "That was nice," he said. I forgot about feeling sick for a while." Louise smiled. "That was the idea." Marcus helped Jamal back to his room for a nap. "Grandma did a good job with the party, didn't she?" "Yeah, she knows how to make regular days special." Jamal climbed into bed carefully. "Dad, can I ask for something?" "Of course. I want to visit Emma at the hospital. Tyler said she's not doing well and she might have to go to a special care facility soon." Marcus hesitated. He knew Emma's condition had deteriorated rapidly in the past week. Michael had sent a text just that morning saying they were considering hospice care. "I don't know if that's a good idea, Jamal. Your immune system is very weak right now. The hospital has a lot of germs that could make you sick again." "But Emma is my friend," Jamal insisted. "What if I don't get to see her again?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. He remembered Jamal's nighttime question, "Am I going to die like Mom did?" and realized his son understood more about Emma's situation than he'd acknowledged. "Let me talk to Dr. Williams and see what she thinks," Marcus said. "Maybe we can figure out a safe way for you to visit." That evening, after Jamal was asleep, Marcus found Louise in the kitchen making tea. "Jamal wants to visit Emma," he said, accepting the cup she offered him. "I'm terrified of him getting another infection, but I'm also afraid of him regretting not saying goodbye if things don't improve for her." Louise sat across from him at the kitchen island. "It's a difficult balance, protecting his physical health versus his emotional needs." "What would you do?" Marcus asked. Louise considered the question. "I think I would find a way to make the visit happen safely. Jamal needs to learn that facing difficult situations is part of life, even when it's painful. I've been trying to protect him from exactly that pain," Marcus admitted. "I know," Louise said gently, "but sometimes protection becomes its own kind of harm. Jamal knows Emma is very sick. Preventing him from seeing her won't change that reality. It will only add regret to his grief if she doesn't recover." Marcus nodded slowly. "I'll call Dr. Williams in the morning. If she thinks we can manage the infection risk, we'll take him to see Emma." 2 days later, with Dr. Williams' guidance and extra precautions including a medical mask and strict hand hygiene, Marcus and Louise took Jamal to visit Emma at Memorial Hospital. They found her in a private room, her parents sitting nearby. Emma looked markedly different from the girl Jamal had met months ago in the treatment room. Her face swollen from medications, her breathing assisted by oxygen. "Hi, Emma," Jamal said, approaching her bed carefully. "I brought you something." He held out a small package wrapped in colorful paper. Emma smiled weakly. "Thanks for coming," she whispered. "I missed seeing you at group." While the children talked quietly, Marcus stood with Michael and Jennifer near the door. "Thank you for bringing him," Jennifer said. "This means a lot to Emma." "How is she doing?" Marcus asked Michael quietly. Michael shook his head slightly. "The doctors are talking about comfort care now. They don't think—" His voice broke and he couldn't continue. On the drive home, Jamal was unusually quiet. Finally, as they turned onto their street, he spoke. "Emma's not getting better, is she?" "No, buddy, I don't think she is," Marcus answered honestly. "That could happen to me too, right?" Marcus exchanged a glance with Louise in the passenger seat. "It could," he admitted, "but your body is responding to treatment. Emma's cancer came back after it was gone, which makes it harder to treat." Jamal nodded, looking out the window. "I'm glad we visited her. She really liked the star projector I gave her. She said it makes the hospital ceiling look like the night sky." As they pulled into their driveway, Jamal added, "Dad, if I ever get really sick like Emma, I still want to see my friends, even if it's hard for them to see me that way. Okay?" Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. "Okay," he promised. "I understand." That night, after checking that Jamal was sleeping peacefully, Marcus found Louise in the kitchen. She was looking at her phone, her expression somber. "Michael just texted," she said. "They're moving Emma to hospice care tomorrow. The doctors say she has days, maybe a week." Marcus sat heavily on a stool. "How do we tell Jamal?" "Honestly," Louise replied, "the same way you've been talking to him. He's already preparing himself, in his own way." Marcus nodded, thinking about the conversations he'd had with his son recently. About death, about fear, about facing hard truths. "I never thought I'd be having these discussions with an 8-year-old. "No parent does," Louise said softly. "But you're doing it with love and respect. That's what matters." She placed a piece of paper on the counter between them. "These are the details for the children's grief program at Memorial. I think we should be prepared for when the time comes." Marcus looked at the paper, then at Louise. "Help me," he said simply. "Help me prepare for both possibilities. Jamal's recovery or—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "I will," Louise promised, reaching across the counter to take his hand. "We'll face whatever comes together." The days that followed brought both preparation and anticipation for the Johnson family. 6 months had passed since Jamal's initial diagnosis, and Dr. Williams had scheduled a comprehensive evaluation to determine whether the aggressive treatment protocol was working effectively. "The tests will take most of a day," Dr. Williams explained during Jamal's regular appointment. "We'll do blood work, scans, and a bone marrow sample. This will give us a complete picture of how the leukemia is responding to treatment." Marcus nodded, making notes in the small notebook he now carried everywhere. "When will we know the results?" "I should have preliminary findings the same day, but the complete analysis will take 48 hours, Dr. Williams replied. "I know waiting is difficult, but these tests are thorough for a reason." On the drive home, Jamal was quieter than usual. "What are you thinking about, buddy?" Marcus asked, glancing at his son in the rearview mirror. "What if the tests say the medicine isn't working?" Jamal asked. Louise turned in her seat to face him. "Then Dr. Williams will try a different approach. There are many options. But what if none of them work? Like with Emma?" 3 days earlier, Emma Adams had passed away peacefully in hospice care, with her parents at her side. Marcus and Louise had told Jamal gently, and he had cried in his grandmother's arms, his thin body shaking with sobs that seemed too big for his small frame. Emma's situation was different, Marcus said carefully. Remember what Dr. Williams explained about her cancer coming back after it was gone. Your body is fighting in a different way. Jamal nodded but didn't look convinced. When is the big test day? Next Tuesday, Louise answered, and we'll all be there together. The weekend before the evaluation, Marcus focused on keeping Jamal's spirits up. They played gentle games on the small basketball court when Jamal felt strong enough. Louise organized a movie marathon featuring all of Jamal's favorite films. They avoided talking about Emma or the upcoming tests, creating a bubble of normalcy that everyone knew was temporary but needed. On Monday night, Marcus helped Jamal prepare for the next day. "We need to leave early in the morning," he explained. "The first appointment is at 8. "Will it hurt?" Jamal asked, his eyes serious. "The bone marrow thing?" Marcus nodded, knowing honesty was important. "Yes, that part will hurt, but Dr. Williams will give you medicine to help with the pain. And we'll be right there with you." "Will you hold my hand?" Jamal asked. "Like you did when Mom was in the hospital?" The mention of Angela caught Marcus by surprise. Jamal rarely spoke about his mother. "Of course I will." The whole time. After Jamal fell asleep, Marcus found himself unable to rest. He wandered downstairs and discovered Louise at the kitchen table, knitting what looked like a small cap. "Can't sleep?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "Too much on my mind." He gestured to her knitting. "Is that for Jamal?" "No, for the hospital's newborn unit. It helps me calm my thoughts." Louise set her needles down. "You're worried about tomorrow. What if the tests show the treatment isn't working?" Marcus voiced the fear he couldn't express in front of Jamal. "What if we're losing him despite everything?" Louise reached across the table and took his hand. "Then we face that together, one step at a time." "But Marcus, don't borrow trouble. Let's wait for the results before we assume the worst." Morning arrived with unexpected weather. A spring thunderstorm swept across Chicago, rain hammering against the windows as Marcus helped Jamal get dressed. "The sky is angry today," Jamal observed, looking out at the lightning flashing across the darkened sky. "Just a storm," Marcus assured him. "It should clear up later." The drive to Memorial Children's Hospital was slow, traffic crawling through flooded streets. When they finally arrived, Marcus had to carry Jamal from the parking garage to avoid the puddles. In the pediatric oncology department, nurses prepped Jamal for his first scan. The hospital lights flickered as thunder boomed outside, causing momentary panic among the staff. "Don't worry," a nurse reassured them. "Our backup generators will kick in if the power goes out. Your tests won't be interrupted." Throughout the morning, Jamal underwent multiple procedures. Blood was drawn, machines took images of his body, and finally, for the bone marrow sample, he was given medication to make him sleepy and reduce pain. As promised, Marcus held his son's hand throughout the bone marrow procedure, wincing internally when Jamal whimpered despite the medication. Louise stood on Jamal's other side, stroking his head and murmuring words of encouragement. When all the tests were complete, the waiting began. Dr. Williams had explained she would need several hours to review the preliminary results before meeting with them. Jamal, exhausted from the procedures and still groggy from medication, slept in a hospital bed they'd provided for the day. "You should get some coffee," Louise suggested to Marcus. "I'll stay with him." Marcus nodded and headed to the hospital cafeteria. On his way, he passed the small chapel, its door open and inviting. Without quite knowing why, he stepped inside. The chapel was empty and quiet, a stark contrast to the busy hospital corridors. Marcus sat in a back row, not praying exactly, but thinking about the journey of the past 6 months. He remembered sitting in a similar chapel after Angela's sudden death, filled with anger and confusion. Today, his feelings were more complex. Fear mingled with hope, grief for Emma alongside determination for Jamal. "It feels different the second time, doesn't it?" a voice said softly. Marcus turned to see Jennifer Adams standing in the doorway, Her eyes were red from crying, but her face was composed. "Jennifer," Marcus said, standing, "I'm so sorry about Emma." She nodded and came to sit beside him. "Thank you for letting Jamal visit her. It meant everything to her, and to us." "How are you and Michael doing?" Marcus asked. Jennifer gave a sad smile. "1 minute at a time. Some moments I feel almost peaceful knowing she's not suffering anymore. Other moments I can barely breathe from missing her." She looked at Marcus directly. "Is Jamal having tests today?" "Yes. We're waiting for results now." "I hope they're good," Jennifer said sincerely. "I mean that. Emma's outcome doesn't have to be Jamal's." "I've been afraid to hope," Marcus admitted. "Hope is never wasted," Jennifer said simply. "Even when the outcome isn't what we wanted, the hope itself has value." It carried Emma through a lot of difficult days. They sat in comfortable silence until Marcus's phone vibrated with a text from Louise. "Dr. Williams is ready to talk to us." Back in the oncology department, Marcus found Louise and a now-awake Jamal waiting outside Dr. Williams' office. Jamal looked pale and tired but alert. "How are you feeling, buddy?" Marcus asked. "Sore," Jamal admitted, "but okay." "Doctor." Williams opened her door and invited them in. Her face revealed nothing as she gestured for them to sit. She had several images on her computer screen and a folder of papers on her desk. "I've reviewed the preliminary results," she began, her voice professional, "and I have cautiously good news." Marcus felt Louise reach for his hand. "Jamal's cancer is responding to the treatment," Dr. Williams continued. "The aggressive protocol is working. The number of leukemia cells has decreased significantly since our last major evaluation." "So he's getting better?" Marcus asked, hardly daring to believe it. "He's showing significant improvement," Dr. Williams clarified. "It's not a complete remission yet, but we're moving in the right direction." Louise squeezed Marcus's hand tightly. "What happens next?" "We continue the current protocol for another 8 weeks, then reevaluate. If this positive trend continues, we can start discussing the maintenance phase of treatment." Jamal looked between the adults. "Does that mean I'm not going to die?" Dr. Williams smiled gently at him. "It means your body is fighting the cancer very well. We still have work to do, but this is very encouraging news." The doctor showed them scans and charts, explaining in simple terms how Jamal's body was responding to treatment. She outlined the plan for the coming months and the long-term monitoring that would follow even after active treatment ended. "Remember," she cautioned, "this is a marathon, not a sprint. Jamal will need treatment for many more months and monitoring for years. But today's results give us good reason to be optimistic." When they left Dr. Williams's office, Jamal asked for ice cream to celebrate. Marcus laughed, feeling lighter than he had in months. "I think that can be arranged." They ate in the hospital cafeteria, Jamal managing small bites despite his mouth still being sensitive from treatment. The storm outside had cleared, sunlight now streaming through the windows. "Can I go back to school more days now?" Jamal asked. "Maybe play with my friends sometimes?" "We'll talk with Dr. Williams about increasing your school days," Louise promised. "One step at a time." As they were preparing to leave the hospital, Marcus's phone rang. The screen showed Michael Adams's name. Marcus stepped away to answer. "Michael," he said, "how are you holding up?" Michael's voice was tired but calm. "We just finished making the funeral arrangements for Emma. Small service this Sunday. We'd like Jamal to come if he feels well enough. Emma would have wanted him there." "Of course," Marcus said. "We'll be there." When he rejoined Louise and Jamal, his emotions were conflicted. The joy of Jamal's positive test results now mingled with sadness for the Adams family. "Is everything okay, Dad?" Jamal asked, noticing his father's changed expression. "That was Michael Adams," Marcus explained gently. "They're planning Emma's funeral for Sunday. They'd like us to be there." Jamal nodded seriously. "I want to go. She was my friend." On the drive home, Jamal fell asleep in the back seat. exhausted from the day's procedures. Marcus drove carefully through the Chicago streets, still wet from the morning storm. "It's strange," he said quietly to Louise. "This morning I was terrified we might lose him. Now I'm feeling hopeful about his future while grieving for Emma." "Life is often like that," Louise replied, "joy and sorrow side by side." When they arrived home, Marcus carried a sleeping Jamal to his bedroom. After settling his son, he found Louise sitting at the kitchen table looking thoughtful. "What's on your mind?" he asked. "I've been thinking about the Addams family," she said, "and about all the families we've met on this journey. Some with resources, some without, all fighting the same battle. I wish there was more we could do to help," Marcus said. Louise looked up at him, determination in her eyes. "Maybe there is. I have an idea that could honor Emma's memory and help Jamal continue his healing journey. But it would mean sharing our private struggle with the world." "What kind of idea?" Marcus asked. "A fundraiser," Louise explained, "for pediatric cancer research and family support services at Memorial. Something that brings together all the communities we've become part of: business, medical, families, fighting cancer." Marcus considered this, thinking about how much their lives had changed in 6 months. "Tell me more," he said, pulling up a chair beside her. Emma's funeral was held on a bright Sunday morning at a small church in the Chicago suburbs. Cherry blossom trees lined the entrance, their pink flowers drifting gently in the spring breeze. Inside, the church was filled with photos of Emma. Emma at the beach, Emma playing soccer, Emma in her hospital room making funny faces at the camera. The Johnson family sat in a middle pew. Jamal wore his best clothes, a button-up shirt and khaki pants that now hung loosely on his thin frame. He had insisted on attending despite having had a chemotherapy session just 2 days earlier. "Are you feeling okay?" Marcus whispered as music began playing. Jamal nodded, his eyes fixed on the small white casket at the front of the church, decorated with flowers and Emma's favorite stuffed animals. The service was brief but beautiful. Emma's parents shared stories that made people both laugh and cry. Her school friends sang a song they had practiced together. When the minister invited others to speak, Jamal surprised Marcus by standing up. "May I say something?" he asked in a clear voice. The minister nodded, and Jamal walked slowly to the front of the church. He looked tiny standing there alone, but his voice was steady. "Emma was my friend from the hospital. She showed me that being sick doesn't mean you can't be brave. She told the best jokes even on the bad days. I will miss her a lot." With that simple tribute, Jamal returned to his seat. Michael and Jennifer Addams reached across the aisle to squeeze his hand, tears streaming down their faces. After the service, during the small gathering at the Addams home, Jennifer embraced Jamal warmly. "Thank you for what you said about Emma. It meant so much to us." "I just told the truth," Jamal replied. Michael took Marcus aside. "How is Jamal's treatment going?" "The latest tests show improvement," Marcus said. "The doctors are cautiously optimistic." Michael nodded, his eyes reflecting both happiness for Jamal and the fresh pain of his own loss. "That's wonderful news. Emma would be so pleased." On the drive home, Jamal was quiet, looking out the window at the passing neighborhoods. Finally, he spoke. "Dad, I've been thinking about Grandma's idea. The fundraiser for the hospital." "What about it?" Marcus asked. "I want to help. I want to do it for Emma and for all the kids who need better medicine." Marcus glanced at Louise in the passenger seat. She was watching Jamal in the rearview mirror, her eyes soft with emotion. "Are you sure?" Marcus asked. "It would mean talking publicly about your illness." Jamal nodded. "I'm not embarrassed. Everyone at school already knows I have cancer. Maybe if we help the doctors, other kids won't have to be as sick as Emma was." That evening, after Jamal was asleep, Marcus and Louise began planning in earnest. At the dining room table, they created a list of potential contributors and supporters. "I can reach out to my business network," Marcus said, writing names on a notepad. "Many of them have wanted to help but didn't know how." "And I'll contact the hospital staff and support groups," Louise added. "The nurses, the doctors, the families we've met. They all have networks too." Over the next 2 weeks, the fundraiser planning brought new energy to the household. Marcus secured the grand ballroom at the Chicago Lakefront Hotel, a prestigious venue with stunning views of Lake Michigan. Louise worked with Dr. Williams to create educational materials about pediatric cancer for display at the event. Jamal, despite continuing his treatment, became involved in his own way. During a good day when his energy was higher, he sat at the kitchen table designing invitation cards. "I'm making them superhero-themed," he explained to Marcus. "Each superhero stands for a different kind of cancer that kids get." Marcus looked over his son's shoulder at the colorful drawings. "These are really good, buddy." "Tyler from my hospital group is helping with ideas," Jamal said. "His cancer is in his bones, so his superhero has a special skeleton." The project gave Jamal something positive to focus on during his difficult treatment days. Even when he was too tired to get out of bed, he would sketch ideas for the fundraiser or make lists of things he wanted to include. One afternoon, while searching for family photos to use in the event materials, Marcus discovered a box in Louise's room containing several notebooks. He recognized them as her journals, the ones she had been keeping since Jamal's diagnosis. With her permission, he began reading them. The journals contained far more than medical notes. They held observations about Jamal's courage, Marcus's transformation as a father, and Louise's own fears and hopes. In one entry, she had written, "Watched Marcus and Jamal playing cards today." 6 months ago, Marcus would have been checking his phone every 2 minutes. Today, he was fully present, laughing at Jamal's jokes, not rushing even when Jamal took a long time to make his moves because his hands were shaky from medication. The cancer has taken so much from them, but it has also given this: a father who understands what truly matters. Reading Louise's perspective on their journey moved Marcus deeply. With her agreement, he decided to incorporate parts of her journals into the fundraiser presentation, highlighting the crucial role of family caregivers in a child's cancer journey. As the event date approached, Dr. Williams adjusted Jamal's treatment schedule to ensure he would have enough energy to attend. "His blood counts are continuing to improve," she told Marcus and Louise during an appointment. "The leukemia is responding well to treatment. He should be able to handle a few hours at the event if we plan carefully." The night before the fundraiser, Jamal became anxious about his appearance. Though his condition was improving, treatment had left visible marks. His thinness, the central line catheter partially visible at the neckline of his shirt, his patchy hair growth. "What if people stare at me?" he asked Marcus as they laid out his clothes for the next day. Marcus sat on the edge of Jamal's bed. "Some people might look because they're not used to seeing children with cancer. But the people coming tomorrow, they're coming because they care about kids like you." "What if someone asks me questions about being sick?" "You only answer what you feel comfortable sharing," Louise said from the doorway. "You can always say, 'I don't want to talk about that right now.'" Jamal practiced possible responses with Marcus and Louise, gradually becoming more confident about the upcoming event. The next evening, the Chicago Lakefront Hotel ballroom was transformed. Educational displays about pediatric cancer stood alongside artwork created by young patients. A memorial table honored children who had lost their battles with cancer, with Emma's smiling photo prominently displayed among flowers and candles. Chicago's business leaders mingled with medical professionals and families affected by childhood cancer. Jamal, wearing a custom suit Marcus had ordered for the occasion, moved through the crowd with surprising poise, sometimes using a wheelchair when he grew tired. Marcus watched with pride as his son spoke with guests, explaining his drawings and answering questions with a maturity beyond his years. Louise had organized a display of handmade items created by grandparents in the hospital support group, blankets, caps, and comfort items for young patients. When it was time for the formal presentation, Marcus took the stage. The room quieted as he adjusted the microphone. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began. "6 months ago, my world changed when my son Jamal was diagnosed with leukemia. As a businessman, I approached his illness the way I approach all problems, with resources, with experts, with control." He paused, looking toward Louise and Jamal in the front row. "What I didn't understand then was that some challenges can't be solved with money or power. They can only be navigated with wisdom, patience, and presence. My mother, Louise Johnson, taught me this lesson." Marcus gestured to the display of Louise's journals. "These notebooks document not just Jamal's medical journey but our emotional one as well. They show how love sometimes looks different than we expect. Sometimes it's holding a hand through pain. Sometimes it's knowing when to act before the crisis hits. And sometimes," he smiled, remembering the head-shaving incident that started their journey, "it's simply shaving a head with kindness and foresight." The audience listened intently as Marcus continued, explaining how their experience had revealed the gaps in support for families fighting childhood cancer. He outlined the programs the fundraiser would support: family housing near the hospital, expanded psychological services, research into less toxic treatments, and training for extended family members in patient care. "We stand here tonight in honor of all children fighting cancer," Marcus concluded, "especially those like Emma Adams, who fought with courage but whose journey ended too soon. And we stand in gratitude for the caregivers, the parents, grandparents, siblings, and friends who walk alongside these brave children every step of the way." The event raised over $2 million for Memorial Children's Hospital's family support services. As guests began to depart, Jamal sat with Michael and Jennifer Adams near Emma's memorial display. "She would have loved this," Jennifer said, looking around the ballroom. "All the superheroes and bright colors." Jamal nodded. "I made sure her superhero was the strongest one. She had the most bravery of anyone I know." As Marcus helped Jamal into their car at the end of the night, exhausted but satisfied, he noticed his son looking back at the hotel. "What are you thinking, buddy?" he asked. "I'm thinking about how Emma's still helping people even though she's gone," Jamal said. "That's pretty special." "Yes, it is," Marcus agreed, "and so are you." When they arrived home, Marcus carried a sleeping Jamal to his bedroom. As he carefully removed his son's dress shoes and suit jacket, he marveled at how much had changed since that January evening when he'd found Louise shaving Jamal's head. In the kitchen, Louise was making tea when Marcus joined her. "It was a beautiful event," she said. "You spoke from your heart." "I spoke the truth," Marcus replied, "about what you taught me, about what really matters." Louise smiled and handed him a cup of tea. "I saw Jamal talking with that reporter from the Chicago Tribune for quite a while. What were they discussing?" "I'm not sure," Marcus said. "He seemed very engaged in their conversation." "Well, whatever it was," Louise said, "he looked more animated than I've seen him in months, like he found a purpose in all of this." Marcus nodded, thinking about the journey they had traveled together, not just through Jamal's cancer treatment, but through their own transformation as a family. Perhaps that's the most healing thing of all. 3 weeks after the fundraiser, the Sunday edition of the Chicago Tribune featured a front-page story titled "Cancer Through a Child's Eyes: Jamal Johnson's Journey." The article, accompanied by photos from the event, shared Jamal's perspective on his illness and his hope for better treatments for children with cancer. "I didn't know Jamal had shared so much with the reporter," Marcus said as he and Louise read the newspaper at the breakfast table. "He's found his voice through all this," Louise replied, "just like you found a new purpose." The article sparked an unexpected response. Calls and emails poured in from families facing childhood cancer, from medical professionals and from potential donors wanting to support the cause. Within a month, Marcus and the Adams family had established the Emma Adams Foundation, dedicated to improving the lives of children with cancer and their families. 1 year after Jamal's initial diagnosis, the Johnson family gathered at Memorial Children's Hospital for a long-awaited milestone. The pediatric oncology hallway was lined with nurses, doctors, and staff members, all smiling as Jamal approached the bell mounted on the wall, the bell that patients rang to mark the end of their treatment. Dr. Williams stood beside Jamal, her hand on his shoulder. "This is your big moment, Jamal. Your final scheduled chemotherapy treatment is complete." Jamal, now 9 years old, looked up at his father and grandmother. "Together?" he asked, reaching for their hands. Marcus and Louise each took one of Jamal's hands, and together they reached for the bell's rope. The clear, bright sound echoed through the hallway as staff members cheered and applauded. "Congratulations, Jamal," Dr. Williams said, hugging him gently. "You've been so brave through all of this." Jamal still looked thin, but healthier than he had in months. A dusting of new hair had begun to grow on his head, soft and slightly darker than before. In Dr. Williams's office afterward, she reviewed Jamal's latest test results. "The leukemia is in remission," she explained. "That's very good news. However," she continued, her tone serious, "we'll need to monitor Jamal closely for at least 5 years with regular checkups and blood tests." "What are the chances of the cancer coming back?" Marcus asked. With the type of leukemia Jamal had and his good response to treatment, the prognosis is positive. But there are no guarantees in medicine. That's why the monitoring is so important. "What about school and activities?" Louise asked. "Can he return to normal routines?" "Gradually, yes," Dr. Williams nodded. "His immune system will still be recovering for several months, so we'll need to be cautious about infections. But it's time for Jamal to begin reclaiming his childhood." That evening, back at home, Marcus helped Jamal remove some of the medical equipment that had become part of his bedroom. The fourth stand went into a closet. The medication schedule charts came down from the wall, replaced by posters of Jamal's favorite basketball players. "Does this mean I'm really better?" Jamal asked as they worked. Marcus sat beside him on the bed. "It means your body has responded well to the treatment. The cancer cells we could detect are gone, but Dr. Williams will keep checking to make sure they don't come back." "Like they did with Emma," Jamal said quietly. "Yes," Marcus answered honestly, "but every case is different. Your body has shown it's very good at fighting with the help of the medicine." In her room, Louise was packing medical supplies into boxes. Some would be stored in case they were needed again. Others would be donated to the Emma Adams Foundation for family support kits, packages designed to help families navigate the early days after diagnosis. "What are you doing with your journals?" Marcus asked, finding Louise surrounded by notebooks. "The publishing company is picking them up tomorrow," she replied. "I still can't believe they're turning them into a book." The feature article in the Chicago Tribune had led to interest from a publisher in Louise's detailed accounts of caring for a child with cancer. The Caregiver's Journey, a grandmother's guide to childhood cancer, was scheduled for release in 3 months. Dr. Williams already ordered 50 copies for newly diagnosed families at Memorial, Marcus said with pride, and the foundation will distribute hundreds more to hospitals across the country. 2 days later, Jamal returned to Lakeside Academy part-time. His classmates had prepared a welcome-back celebration with cards and a banner in the classroom. His teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had worked with the school counselor to prepare the other students for Jamal's return. "Remember, Jamal might get tired more easily," she explained to the class, "and his immune system is still recovering, so if you're sick, it's best to keep a little distance until you're well again." "We made a special desk for you, Jamal," one girl said, showing him how they had cushioned his chair and created a space for him to rest if needed during the day. That same morning, Marcus attended his first in-person board meeting at his company headquarters since taking his leave of absence. The executive team greeted him warmly as he entered the familiar conference room. "Before we discuss business," Marcus began, "I want to propose a new company policy." He distributed folders containing his proposal for extended medical leave benefits and flexible work arrangements for employees with seriously ill family members. "My experience this past year showed me how critical these supports are," Marcus explained. "I was fortunate to have the resources and authority to step away from work. Most people don't have that luxury, and they shouldn't have to choose between their job and being present for a sick loved one." The board approved the policy unanimously. At home, the Johnson mansion had evolved from a showplace of wealth into a center of community support. The formal living room now regularly hosted support group meetings. The kitchen, once used primarily by staff, became a gathering place where Louise taught other grandparents how to prepare meals that appealed to children on chemotherapy. One sunny Saturday morning, the Addams family joined the Johnsons in the garden for a special ceremony. Michael and Jennifer watched as Jamal carefully planted a young cherry tree. "For Emma," Jamal explained, "because she liked the cherry blossoms at the church that day." Jennifer knelt beside him, helping to pat soil around the slender trunk. "This is a beautiful tribute, Jamal." "Thank you." "I thought we could have a picnic here every year when it blooms," Jamal suggested, "to remember her." "That's a wonderful idea," Jennifer said, wiping away tears. "Emma would love that." As spring turned to summer, Jamal's strength continued to improve. His hair grew back in patches, dark and curly like before. One morning at breakfast, he proudly announced, "I don't think I need my caps anymore." "Are you sure?" Louise asked. "You've been wearing them even around the house." "I'm not scared for people to see me now," Jamal said with a confidence that made Marcus's heart swell with pride. "My friend Tyler at the hospital group says our heads tell our stories." Later that week, Marcus received a call about an important meeting in New York with potential European investors. It would require him to be away for 2 days. "I can move some meetings to make it work," Marcus told Diane on the phone. That evening, Jamal developed a slight fever. 99.6 degrees, nothing dangerous but a reminder of his still recovering immune system. Without hesitation, Marcus called Diane back. "I need to reschedule the New York trip," he said. "Jamal has a fever. It's probably nothing serious, but I need to be here." "Understood," Diane replied without question. "Family first." Those 2 words, family first, reflected the profound shift in Marcus's priorities since Jamal's diagnosis. His company continued to thrive under his leadership, but it no longer defined his identity or consumed his every waking hour. As summer settled over Chicago, bringing warm evenings and long golden twilights, the Johnson family established new routines. Every evening after dinner, they would sit on the wide porch swing that Marcus had installed overlooking the garden. They would talk about their day, make plans for the future, or sometimes just sit in comfortable silence watching fireflies emerge as darkness fell. One such evening, with the newly planted cherry tree visible in the fading light, Jamal sat between Marcus and Louise on the swing. "Dad," he said thoughtfully, "do you remember when you got mad at Grandma for shaving my head?" Marcus laughed softly. "I do. It feels like a lifetime ago." "I've been thinking about that," Jamal continued. "You know what, Dad? Grandma was right about my hair, but you were right too." "How's that?" Marcus asked, curious. "You wanted me to feel normal. Grandma wanted me to be ready." Jamal looked between them, his expression serious beyond his years. "I needed both." Louise reached over and took Marcus's hand, completing the circle with Jamal between them. "We did it," Jamal whispered, leaning his head against his father's shoulder. 3 simple words that encompassed their journey, from conflict to cooperation, from fear to hope, and from merely surviving to truly living. As twilight deepened into night, the 3 generations of Johnsons remained on the porch swing, connected by the bonds that had been tested and strengthened through their shared ordeal. The garden before them held the promise of growth, of renewal, of life continuing with all its challenges and joys. And in the gentle summer darkness, that was enough. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.